Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today we're going to be giving 5 heroes for every single rank that you guys should be picking right now. These are 5 heroes, well, 5 heroes for every rank, that I think are extremely good in pubs right now and will give you a much higher chance to win for at least the next month, because news in, no patch for what looks like a month. So you should pick these heroes now so that you can gain the MMR. And one more thing before we get into the video, no, it's not the gameleap sub. I want to let you guys know that we have a sponsor for today's video, and I made a funny little skit, and let's get into it. Now, you guys know that I think jungling is absolutely broken, but having a jungle in real life absolutely is not. And that's why you need to try out Manscaped 4.0, and I'm going to tell you a bit about it. So Manscaped, who is the sponsor of today's video, was kind enough to send me their Performance 4.0 package, which comes with a couple of key things, a few that I've been using religiously. It comes with a nice pair of boxer briefs, a travel bag, the weed whacker, which is good for nose hairs. I don't have a lot of nose hairs. And then the major things that I've been using is the 4.0 lawnmower, which basically just lets you trim your jungle down below. It's completely waterproof, so I use it in the shower. It's easy to charge, and I've had no nicks. So just an optimal experience, an immortal experience. And then another thing that I've been loving is the Crop Reviver. It's basically like a scent spray for your balls, but it smells really nice. So I can't recommend it enough. And so go check out the Performance Package 4.0 in the description down below. We have a discount code. It's SPEED. Your boy Speed is the discount code. There are 3 E's in Speed for 20% off your purchase and free international shipping, which means if you're from SEA, you have no excuse. And yeah, let's get into the video. Alright, so starting off, we're going to get into the Herald and Guardian bracket. For the sake of time and your sanity, I decided to put Herald and Guardian together, Crusader and Archon together, Legend and Ancient together, and Divine and Immortal. And while they're not the exact same, there's a lot of similarities between these brackets, and now let's get into it. So let's start with Herald and Guardian for the position 5. So for Herald and Guardian in the position 5 role, I went with Omni Knight. Now, there's a very strong reason behind this, and this might seem absolutely insane. Speed, I watched your last patch video, or the patch when Omni Knight got dumped on. Heavenly Grace is dispellable. How in the world can you tell me now to pick Omni Knight? A big portion of this video is going to be me referencing Dota buff win rates, but the reality is it gives you a clear idea of how heroes are generally performing in pubs. Omni Knight is the second highest win rate hero in pubs. He's the second highest, behind Enigma, which is a hero that people spam, wins lane and scales well in pubs. People also don't know how to play against it, and they group up. So I think Enigma has a lot of good factors for it, which is, I didn't put it in this video, which is funny because it's the highest win rate, but at the end of the day, Omni Knight is still good. And I don't want you guys to have this perception of you'll hear a pro say on stream, or you'll hear me in a previous video, oh, Omni Knight's terrible. Because the thing is, sometimes we're referring to our bracket, we're referring to our skill level. I mean, it makes sense, right? People are going to speak from their own experience. So when a pro thinks Omni Knight is trash, I mean, it's pretty reasonable because people are going to know that Heavenly Grace is dispellable. And you might be like, oh, Speed, I'm 2K, I'm 1K, I'm 3K, I know that. But there's more layers to that. Even if you know something, doesn't mean you're going to properly counter it, okay? There's a lot of people who know a lot of things about Dota. It doesn't mean they address these problems correctly. On top of that, sometimes they'll know something and it will actually disservice them because they'll be like, oh, the enemy team has a Spear Breaker. They have an Omni Knight. I need a Yule Scepter. And they'll buy a Yule Scepter on some shitty hero like Storm Spirit. And then you have a Storm Spirit with a Yule Scepter. And you're like, wow, my Storm Spirit can't zip for shit because he doesn't have a Kaya. He can't kill anyone because he doesn't have Orchid. But, oh, great, he can dispel Heavenly Grace. All right, next up, let's get into the position 5s of all 3 of the other brackets. So this is how I'm going to be doing it. But the reason why I say of all 3 of the other brackets is I'm not doing this for any other role, but for Crusader, Archon, Legend, Ancient, Divine, and Immortal, I went with Ogre. This is one of the highest winner heroes in the game, and honestly, I genuinely just think you cannot go wrong with Ogre. Hey, are you a safe lane player? And you need to play position 5? Well, just pick Ogre. You're going to probably win the lane because you're really good at trading with Ignite, and most pubs are just team fighting. It's just people running around fighting, okay? That's it. Ogre's incredibly good at that. It doesn't matter if you position well, right? Because you're tanky early on. I mean, it does later on, but your positioning matters much less than other supports. Ignite does way too much damage, especially with your level 10 talent. And considering most games go pretty long in pubs, Ogre scales well. He has really, really good talents, and he scales naturally well with items because of multicast. So if you don't know what to pick, you're lost. Please keep it simple. This hero is busted and easy to play. Just go with Ogre. All right, getting into Herald and Guardian, back for the position 4 role, we have Jakiro. Now, this might seem weird, it's a ranged hero, but honestly, it's one of the highest win rate heroes in Dota. And on top of that, I actually like playing Jakiro 4 personally, even in the Immortal bracket. So yes, this is something that can even, scale as you gain MMR, and I don't think this hero is going to go anywhere, even with future patches. It's usually just like a solid hero, but it's actually very good in pubs, and there's a couple reasons why. Number 1, it's a good laner. Number 2, it does very well at every stage of the game in fighting. Early game, I actually personally recommend maxing your Q and just winning the early game fights. I don't think Ice Path does very much early on into the game for the most part, so the skill build I personally like is 4-1-1, sometimes even 4-0-2 if you really are dominating your lane, and going from there. And then, yeah, he scales incredibly well with items. Jakiro's Ags is one of my favorite in the game, and makes his ultimate do more damage, and turns it into pure. And it goes through BKB, which basically means if a core gets stunned, or if a core doesn't know, which most people don't know Jakiro's Ags makes it pure and go through BKB, it just shreds them, so it's pretty insane. Then let's get into Crusader and Archon. For position 4, I recommend Treant. The reason why I like heroes like Treant and Jakiro when we're in the lower brackets is because they're very good laners. They're just solid laners overall. And so a hero like Treant is going to naturally pair well with most offlaners. He's good with Centaur, because you can slow people for the stun setup. He's good with Viper, because he can frontline if needed, right? He has heals and living armor, which can give 5 armor to anyone in the laning stage, which is a stupid high amount of armor. So you get the gist. This hero just is very well rounded. You don't have to worry nearly as much about matchups. You're always going to be pretty good. And I really value teamfight the lower and lower MMR you go, because the games often revolve around the team fights. The games begin and end with team fights, so I like Treant. For Legend and Ancient, I'm gonna go a little bit off the rails here. A 52% win rate hero in Skywrath Mage. I actually wanted to put this hero in Divine and Immortal, but I had something else I wanted to put there, so I moved it down to Legend and Ancient, and I think it's a good fit here as well. The hero's a very solid laner, and I think as you start to gain MMR, you start to get to Legend to Ancient, people work together quite a bit more. And as a result, Skywrath's ultimate is going to allow you to control the early to mid portions of the game. Also, if you are greedy enough and you can get around a 15 to 20 minute Orchid, even earlier some games, you can one-shot cores in the side lanes, which I think is a skill that people develop as they gain MMR, the ability to have confidence to go alone to a side lane, to play a ward and pick someone off in that regard. And finally, for Divine and Immortal, we have Undying. Yeah, you heard me right, Undying. This one's a bit of a hot take for sure, but I've played it a couple times myself, and it's felt good almost every single game. And the reason why I want to put Undying as a 4 in Divine and Immortal, even though I think it could be played in any bracket actually, this one I think could be flexed to all the other brackets, is I like playing Undying in a very greedy way. I watched a player, I don't remember who it was, he was like ranked 30 or 40, play it in one of my games, and he went Aether Lens into like a bunch of aura items, like drums and AC, and he took the Decay talent at level 10, as I said, built Aether Lens, maxed his Q and Tombstone, and like shoved side lanes and took Ancient stacks, and he just got massive. And the hero is a stupid good laner, as we all know, and in the past I was like, oh, Undying can't lane in the offlane. I've updated my knowledge of the game ever since, and honestly I've played it a bunch, and Undying feels totally fine in the offlane. You just can't dive the tier 1. Alright, next let's get into the offlane. Starting at Herald and Guardian, I recommend Underlord. Keep it real simple. The hero's a good laner, buys auras. And honestly, like, something I've noticed is that people buy auras on offlaners and like heroes in general, when honestly a huge portion of like the auras, Crimson Guard, Pipe, Vlad's, or like Crimson Guard, Pipe, and Vlad's, they all kind of are trash right now for the most part. And yet people still buy them. So like, if you're gonna buy them, just buy them on like Underlord, because then it's actually decent, because the hero functions even without like DPS items. Even though I think the best build on Underlord is generally Athos. So yeah, I just think the hero's well-rounded, honestly. It's also extremely good at punishing tower dives, and like, I've yet to watch a single Herald and Guardian game where they have discipline and don't dive towers. I have not watched a single one. All right, if you guys want to send me a Herald and Guardian game, I'll give you $100, all right? They literally, but you can't, there can't be a single dive. And no, now I know people are like, 5 people are gonna hop on a Smurf, they're gonna be like, wow, I can get $100. 5 people are gonna hop on a Smurf, queue up, and try to do it. But all right, let's move on. For Crusader and Archon, we have Necro. Honestly, just such a reliable, solid laner. I think this hero is just honestly so good. It's easy to play. It scales well. It's just such a well-rounded hero for pubs, in my opinion. The only thing it lacks is lockdown, but I don't think it matters that much. With how people play in the lower brackets, Necro doesn't get kited nearly as much as he would in a Divine and Immortal game, which is why you don't really see it nearly as much in Divine and Immortal, because it gets kited too much. But yeah, that doesn't really happen the lower you go, because people's positioning is just trash. So I think you can easily stomp with Necro. Just please don't go like Radiance first item. I'm like, every time I see it, something in my soul just dies. It just dies. For Legend and Ancient, we have Centaur. I actually just think this hero is pretty solid. On top of that, like, people go really greedy items, even in Legend and Ancient. Like, cores just buy a ton of DPS. And so I think having Centaur to bail them out is honestly just really, really good. And on the note of bailing them out, for Divine and Immortal, we have Darkseer. I think this hero is actually incredibly hard to play, but I believe it's really good right now. The flexibility of Darkseer, because he has a really good axe. I think the Vanguard Orchid build we've been seeing from 33 is really good. On top of that, he has a shard that now gives him a stun. So Darkseer went from this hero that was like pretty linear and it was just like some Ion Shell plus Aura Buyer to this hero that can solo kill if you need to, can be a team buffer within the axe, or can be like a chain stunner with vacuum plus his shard. It's like super versatile now. But when you bring in versatility and difficulty, you also, right, the hero becomes harder and harder to play, which means if you don't know what you're doing, you're just gonna grief. In general, this hero is just like a hard grief hero too, because the laning stage is pretty bad early on. It's very mana intensive and does not have a great mana pool. So the hero like is very difficult. So that's why I'm leaving it to Divine and Immortal. Now let's get into the mids. For Herald and Guardian, we got OD. For Crusader and Archon, we got OD. For Legend and Ancient, we got OD. OD's good. The hero's a stupid good laner. It scales well. It's always good. It's easy to play. It's good in early game fights. It's good in late fights. Siege's tower, it does everything. Like, you could just pick it. Really, there's nothing else. It's good, always good. Its biggest downside is when the enemy team has a ton of jump and stuff, but people struggle to synergize and chain stun OD. So just stay in position, go Meteor Hammer into Midas into BKB and kill them. And for Divine and Immortal, for position number 2, the mid lane, I have Queen of Pain. I could have also put Queen of Pain where OD is, but Queen of Pain is significantly harder to play than OD. The laning stage is a lot more difficult. It's a lot more mechanically intensive for QoP, unless you're just dagger spamming some melee hero. In which case, like, no, it's not that hard. You just dagger them and click them every time they walk up. That's pretty easy. But against like ranged heroes, you gotta know how to scream properly, when to scream. I like screaming. I scream for ice cream. Either way, the point is, I think this hero is just super well-rounded. It's a very reliable laner. It scales well. If you've been watching any professional streams, you know that this hero just owns. Honestly, the biggest thing that always catches me off guard with QoP right now is like how much Kaya just buffs the ultimate. Like for some reason, when I see this double null Sange Kaya, like the spell amp that it gives, and then like the fact that her ultimate, like it reads at what is the max damage supposed to be? It's supposed to be 680, but then like when you alt highlight it, because it's pure, right? So like spell amp is particularly good if I'm not mistaken. If you alt highlight it, it ends up reading at like 830 a lot of the time. I think that's about the number. And a lot of heroes, that's like easily half their HP, if not 2/3. And supports just get clipped by this level 18 QoP. And you might be like, oh, that's later into the game. It's not. Considering people are rushing Kaya, it means that they're pushing in more lanes and more camps than ever. You hit this early 18 and then just insta-kill some support to start the fight. And if you're good, or you're lucky in some circumstances, then you hit 3-4 heroes and the fight just ends. But yeah, the hero hitting the timings and the execution, also using Blink properly, is a little bit difficult, so I left it for Divine and Immortal. Getting into Herald and Guardian, for the number 1, position number 1, the safe lane, we have Wraith King. I love this hero right now. I genuinely was tempted to put it for every single bracket. Every time I watch this hero, the fact, something that was really crazy to me is that there was a period in time where Armlet was just as good as it was now, and no one bought it on Wraith King, which is always the best part about Dota, in my opinion. Something can be so good, and yet no one will do it, or people won't do it because a pro doesn't do it. And I like that. I like that. I mean, do I think it's necessarily healthy? Not all the time, but it makes sense, right? People want to copy what the best people are doing, as you generally should. It's a very logical thing to do. But a lot of people weren't going Armlet on Wraith King. They were going Midas or Rushing Radiance. People have come to terms with the fact that Armlet is kind of just a busted item on the hero. If you skip it, you literally punch people like a wet napkin. It's absolutely embarrassing, not absolutely broken. And so don't go, you know, some Midas on Wraith. Just go Armlet. Go then into Deso. And I know I already hear, I can hear your teammates and hear you. But Speed, what if I'm against a Peel? Should I go Radiance? No! Just own his team so hard that the game ends. This is what happens with Armlet Deso Wraith King. It comes online so early, like minute 17 is the average Deso timing, if you're decent, right? I know people who get it minute 15, 16. They're having a really good game. And you just one-shot the supports. It doesn't matter if PL is farmed. Even if he has, like, his defusal by then, he doesn't have enough HP to really threaten you if you're with your team. He's just gonna die to some nukes, like PL does, to just own his team. Like, literally own his team. You have a cleave talent later on, which honestly isn't that good against PL. It doesn't do enough to kill the illusions, really. But you get the point. This build is so easy. It's so reliable. You're a good laner. Literally, the game farms for you with skeletons. I mean, it's so good. And for Crusader and Archon, I also wanted to say, just go Wraith King. I think it's just such a good hero that to learn to get down the farming fundamentals with the skeletons. If you can learn how to use them to push down side lanes, take the dangerous farm while you just wipe through the jungle, you're never gonna die. You're gonna have more farm than everyone else by a long shot. And then when you fight, inevitably, because you don't have any discipline, it's actually gonna be good. Because you have an Armlet and a Deso, and you do a ton of damage. Getting to Legend and Ancient for position number 1, we have Medusa. I actually think Medusa can be interchanged with Drow here, but I like them both. Honestly, the reason why is it's just a good laner and it scales well into the mid to late game. Just convince your team to give you some space. And finally, for Divine and Immortal, the safe lane, we have Kunkka. Man, I've been loving playing this hero, and I think it is a nasty, good safe laner. I genuinely believe this is one of the best safe laners in Dota right now. However, I know you're going to hear that and be tempted to pick it. I also had someone in my Twitch chat say, oh, Speed, I'm 1-5 in my last Kunkka games. And it makes sense to me. This hero is really, really hard. Its abilities are all confusing. They require a lot of focus. Farming this hero is a bit weird. The timings on this hero are weird. The way you have to play fights is a little bit weird. It's an odd hero, but it's incredibly strong right now, which is why the best team in the world, one of the, is PSG LGD first picking it, and they are not alone in this. A lot of teams are doing it as a safe laner. It loses practically no lanes. It's one of the fastest farming heroes in the game, if you know the tricks. And yeah, I think this hero is kind of busted. Nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and I'm out. Peace!
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the gameleap website where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace!